So this is who you are when no one is watching. Interesting. Because the version of you that is in your head, he would not recognize this guy. Here is a fun fact. Once you become an adult, you're going to spend large portions of your life completely unsupervised. You're not going to have your teacher, your parents, or your boss peeking over your shoulder all the time, seeing what you're up to when you're alone in your room. And this privacy that you have looks quite good on paper. You are the master of your own fate. However, there is a dark side to it that not many people talk about. Who are you when no one is watching? Are you the kind of person that spends his alone time watching lustful garbage, doom scrolling, playing video games 6 hours a day? Or are you the kind of person that wakes up early, spends hours working, takes care of his body, reads and meditates? To be honest with you, I've been on both sides of this. Been the guy who pursues short-term gratification when alone, and been the guy who pursues excellence when no one is watching. And I'm going to tell you the key differences between the psychology and the mindsets of these two people. The first key difference is that the guy who wastes his time when he's alone has absolutely no idea what he's supposed to do with his free time. This guy has no routine, no habits, and no sleep schedule. He just wakes up and does whatever he feels like doing. On the other hand, the guy who pursues excellence in his alone time always has a plan. He has a routine for his day. He knows how and where to spend his free time. He knows what time he's going to hit the bed and go to sleep. Because the thing is that without a routine, it is human nature to pursue short-term pleasure that requires little to no effort. Whereas having a structure to your day opens up an alternative path to receiving pleasure and long-term fulfillment. The second key difference between these two guys is that one of them wants to hone and master a craft. It could be anything. Maybe he wants to be the strongest version of himself. Maybe he wants to be the best fighter he could be, or the best entrepreneur, or the best mathematician. It doesn't really matter what it is. It's just the fact that he has made a long-term commitment towards something and constantly applies himself to that thing and makes progress. On the other hand, the guy who wastes his time never made a commitment towards something. He forever chose the seductive arms of comfort. He probably signed up to the gym but quit after a week. He thought about going to a Muay Thai class but then kept procrastinating it for years. This guy basically has no obstacle to overcome, no domain to apply himself and be proud of his progress. And this isn't just my experience or bro science. In her book called Grit by Angela Duckworth, she talks about a pattern she observed in research. Kids who stick with an extracurricular activity for a meaningful amount of time, especially around 2 years or more, they tend to develop more grit and do better later in life. She also noticed that many high achievers had a history of staying with one challenging pursuit for multiple years instead of constantly quitting and jumping to something new. Because think about it, when you stick to something for years, you are still there when the novelty is gone. You're still there when you're hitting a plateau and not really progressing that fast. There's boredom, there's frustration, there are bad days, yet you still showed up the next day, and this completely changes you as a person. It just builds that grit in you. The final difference between the guy who wastes his alone time and the guy who makes the most out of it is the type of company that they keep. If all your friends are degenerate losers who smoke weed and eat shitty food and just chill with the boys at 2 a.m. each day, then whether you accept it or not, there is a glass ceiling above your head. Your expectations of yourself or your belief in what is even possible is forever going to be limited by the company that you keep. When you see all your friends wake up at 2 in the afternoon, then all of a sudden you feel okay wasting your time and not really doing something worthwhile. On the other hand, if the kind of men that you keep around are men of purpose and action, some guy who wants to be an elite UFC fighter, another one who wants to be an excellent father and become a role model for his community, and then there's a third friend who's devoted to God and prays like 5 times a day and has elite discipline, then guess what? You two are going to have naturally very high standards for yourself. Their value systems, their worldviews, their self-discipline, they are going to rub off on you. But I'm not gonna lie, such men are going to be very few and far between. You would be lucky to maybe find 2 or 3 of them in your lifetime. But then again, I would rather be pulled up by a few than be dragged down by many. To be honest with you, I don't really talk about how much your belief in God actually impacts your self-discipline. But truth be told, the belief that you're constantly being watched and being judged based on your actions, especially when you're alone, this belief itself is kind of a superpower. You're much less likely to be tempted by something degenerate and much more incentivized to spend your time doing something worthwhile. As always, in case no one has told you this today, I am rooting for you.